We thought in visiting with Phil and Tim and the leaders of Colorado Mesa University and the University of Colorado, it made sense to have a panel on higher education this year. And the discussion that we're going to have is entitled From Accessibility to Innovation to Accountability, Reauthorization of the Higher Education Act.
The University of Denver study shows that somewhere between the next 5 to 7 to 10 years, if nothing else is done in the state, there will be zero funding for higher education. And so we have to think better, think outside the box, think more creatively about how we get other sources of revenue to the university besides state funding and tuition. Besides the need-based financial aid, which we're increasing, one of my biggest concerns is that the top students in Colorado are leaving the state, the top high school students, and they're going out of state. Now, certainly some of them are going to the elite privates, but many of them go to public universities that I think are on par with University of Colorado Boulder. But the reason that they're going out of state is they're getting merit scholarships. So even though our tuition is low, we have very few, if any, merit scholarships that we're able to offer our top students. This year, what I've done is to move funding and from one pot to another, and that second pot is something we call the Esteemed Scholars Program. And it's going after the top students in Colorado.
When I checked it last, 66% of Colorado community college students need some form of remediation. 2/3 of the students who show up to community colleges in Colorado need remediation, which is costly to the state. Despite not getting a whole lot of state money, it's still costly. It's very costly to the student. They take these courses that actually don't bear credit, so you can't take them anywhere. Even if you complete them, they're not actually worth anything. They're only worth cashing them in to get to credit-bearing courses. We need to do better.
We've had this goal of let's graduate 100% of people from high school, and this is going to be a little counterintuitive to you, but that is not a good thing, because when you have tracked the increasing high school graduation rates, right along with them has been the increasing remediation rates. We've had this goal of let's graduate 100% of people from high school. And this is going to be a little counterintuitive to you, but that is not a good thing, because when you have tracked the increasing high school graduation rates, right along with them has been the increasing remediation rates. And unfortunately, when you focus, and it tends to be what big public institutions, state governments, federal governments tend to do, we want graduation rates to go up. It's the easiest way to make graduation rates go up, lower the bar. And that's what we've seen in public K through 12 education. And I am sorry, it's a mistake. And that is the pressure we will have in terms of some sort of you'll not qualify or qualify for this funding, that aid.
2011 exports from the state of Colorado in ag products were $2.2 billion, 31% of the total agricultural receipts for the state of Colorado. And agricultural exports, both the growing of the crops, the shipping, the processing, the servicing, support more than 15,000 jobs in Colorado. Wheat, beef, and corn are particularly important for Colorado, and those crops are particularly reliant on export markets. Wheat exports from Colorado were more than $440 million in 2011, and beef exports topped $250 million. And the way we at USDA support those products, we have export promotion programs. We have a market access program which promotes our products overseas, both generically in terms of the U.S. beef label you might see overseas, or U.S. pork, U.S. wheat, U.S. rice, to really get across the fact that U.S. products are high quality, we can deliver them on time and consistently, and we are often very competitive in price as well. We partner directly with some important Colorado-based partners through the Market Access Program, including the Sheep Industry Association, the U.S. Meat Export Federation, the National Potato Promotion Board, and our Brewers Association are all headquartered in your state. An announcement that the Secretary made actually just yesterday at the National Press Club about all the different things that we are doing to try to handle adaptation to climate change. And that includes some new research on soil types specifically, and looking at carbon sequestration and different strategies that farmers can use to help increase the load of that organic matter, which of course is so important not only for crop health, but also for maintaining soil moisture, preventing runoff, doing all of those things. It's a little little-known fact that I am also the daughter of an organic farmer on a very small plot in Nebraska. So I appreciate very much your question, and I think you'll see that the department in these last few years has really sort of expanded its approach to focusing on that conservation piece and to farmers of all sizes and types.
To establish my credentials with this group, I want you to know what I look at every morning when I come into my office. One of the great things I get to do as Secretary of the Navy is I get to name every Navy ship. And as of last summer, there's a new USS Colorado. In 2009, I laid out some goals for the Department of the Navy in terms of energy. And the biggest one was that by no later than 2020, at least half of all the energy the Navy and Marine Corps use afloat and ashore will come from non-fossil fuel sources. Last summer, in July of 2012, at Rim of the Pacific exercise off the coast of Hawaii, it's the biggest naval exercise in the world every 2 years. We debuted something we call the Great Green Fleet. It's an echo of Teddy Roosevelt's Great White Fleet. The Great Green Fleet was a carrier strike group that every type of aircraft that flew off that carrier and every surface ship around, because the carrier was nuclear, but every surface ship around, they flew and they sailed on a 50-50 blend of biofuels and regular aviation gas or diesel. And the big news out of that was that there was no news. The engines didn't notice the difference.
Here's what our country did in the last 13 years. On the taxes, on the revenue side, plain business balance sheet side, on a 10-year basis, we cut taxes $4.5 trillion. Biggest tax cut by a many-fold factor. The remarkable thing is, we could have maybe gotten away with that if we hadn't, on the exact same time that we cut those revenues so much, dramatically increased spending in 5 areas. Post 9/11, we doubled baseline defense spending. Post 9/11, we created a whole new category of spending called Homeland Security. Cost a lot of money, take your shoes off at the airport. We went to war not once, but twice, and this was unprecedented, not going to war, but we went to war entirely on the credit card in Iraq and Afghanistan. And our entitlement programs, we actually created new ones. You know, we saw back 2004, 2005 timeframe that our parents and grandparents were having hard times with prescription drugs, so we created a whole new category in Medicare, Medicare Part D. Very good program, very successful, come in at a lower price, still add an extra $1 trillion to the debt and growing because we didn't pay for a dime of it. There are times when I get frustrated in this job. Mark is still not back. I can really say, I don't know how anybody could have lasted in as long on the Hill as Mark and some of the other folks up here have. And you know, there are, though, good people of goodwill from both parties who want to get this done. And there are conversations going on right now about it. But I will acknowledge that there are moments when I get really frustrated, you know, after that glass of wine, I say, you know, with Mark or our colleagues, and we say, oh my God, this shouldn't be this hard. So when I get the most frustrated, I always go back and rely on one of my personal heroes, Winston Churchill, a great quote from Winston Churchill that gives me faith again. It was early in the war. The Nazis had conquered all of Europe. There was a question about what America would do or not do in the war. They were bombing the heck out of Britain, the Nazis were, and Churchill got up to try to rally the British people, and he said, you can always count on the Americans to do the right thing after they've tried everything else. I kind of feel like that's where we are in our politics right now.
When the President of the United States talks about an all-of-the-above strategy, and when your senator does, you're really talking about Colorado, and there aren't that many states in the country where that's true. So for me, to be able to come and talk to a state that's not only a major producer of every kind of energy, but also a major innovator of every kind of energy, is really important because we depend on the private sector in the Defense Department for all of the innovation and all of the supply that we need in order to defend the country. So you could not ask for a better senator given that scenario, and we could not ask for a better friend on the Senate Armed Services Committee of men and women in uniform and of the energy needs for this department. So that's certainly the other reason that I'm here. How can we harness those technologies and efforts to improve the resilience of the base itself? So that if there's an outage and there's a solar system on the base, that it means that we have continuous power. At a base like that, there are a lot of missions that we can't afford to have go down. So we're increasingly looking at things like microgrids, energy storage, and renewables, and on-site natural gas generation, things like that, for the possibilities they represent to give us better continuity of operations. What you're doing by being here is really important, and what I would ask is that you sustain it, that you not make it a one-time trip, but that you take the time out of that busy day and busy life to make sure that you're sustaining your interest in these issues and making sure you communicate it to us and to the senator. And that's the second thing. Keep sending us good people, because you have. And you couldn't ask for a better representative of your state than Mark Udall. So keep doing that. And I know it's hard to feel like your vote matters, but it does. Because if you don't vote, who does? And then lastly, just an appeal, support the men and women in uniform. And Colorado has a reputation for being very friendly to the armed forces. You have a lot of presence for our forces there. It's very important for them to be engaged in the local community, particularly at a time when we're so heavily deployed and when we're facing a very turbulent future. So, I would ask that you think about that and about how you can be a good neighbor for them, because they want to be a good neighbor for you.
I would just say to you, when you get that whole, what are we going to do? This country's going to hell in a handbasket sort of feeling. I would just say, come to our campus, come to lunch with me, come hang out a little bit. You'll go home and realize we are in wonderful hands. They are really bright, articulate young people, and they're going to take great care of me and my dotage, and all of you as well. But thank you very much, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have.
I'm sure that we've all been thinking, if you could expand the collaboration that we've seen in the last 2 days between both parties and various energy and defense and so on, we'll solve the problems. We really will solve the problems. And that gives me faith when I go back to Colorado to talk about what's going on in Washington. I came probably more depressed than when I'm leaving, very optimistic.
I stood on the summit of Pikes Peak a number of winters ago. Don't ask me what I was doing up there in the winter, but I was on the summit of Pikes Peak, and I was just struck by what lay before me. I thought about Catherine Lee Bates. She wrote America the Beautiful, as some of you know, from the summit of Pikes Peak. And as I stood there, Dan Robinson, I thought about Pueblo, which I could just barely see, and I thought, well, some people would say that's where all the Democrats live. And then, of course, at my feet is Colorado Springs. And somebody else might say, well, that's where all the Republicans live. I didn't see it that way. I just saw this enormously fertile and exciting landscape in front of me, and I could sense the people down in those important communities living their lives, worrying about their children, loving their children, thinking about the future. And for me, that's what informs the way in which I attempt and endeavor every day to represent you.